I'm just reintroducing here. I'm talking with Laird Schaub, Fellowship of for Intentional Communities. Go ahead, Laird. I'm sorry. I just had to restart the recording.
I was going to say that you mentioned you're interested in traveling around the country, and I imagine many of your listeners might be interested in these too. If you went to the website I mentioned earlier, directory.ic.org, there's a tab there that would list the communities by geography, which means in the United States to be broken down by states, and you could look in any particular state for which listings we've got, and then you could track down each listing to find out, you could make a trip based on where you were or where you wanted to go, and then see what communities. I mean, I would encourage you to make arrangements ahead. Never drop in unexpected. That's bad protocol. But most of these groups encourage contact and welcome visitors. Sometimes it's structured to be at a certain time, but they'll tell you all the deal, and it's fascinating to see these. It's one thing to read them, it's another thing to actually experience them.
I think so, and I've been doing articles. I traveled all around the country doing articles on Made in America on motorcycles, American motorcycles. So, yeah, I will use that. And but there's no organization. You're just a resource here. You're just telling people about it. Basically, that's all I really want to do with Liberty Villages is just have these outlets that are open to the public. I mean, there's a lot of people that are doing this on their own, and they don't want to be bothered, and they don't want people coming around, and they don't want people seeing that.
Right. That's true. Most communities are mostly focused on creating a good quality of life for their members and are not that excited about having strangers come by. So, for instance, we've got on our directory a listing of over 1,000 communities in the United States, but we know that that number is probably 4 times that big because the bulk of the communities don't really want to have an open door to strangers coming in anytime, and they want to keep a lower profile, either for a number of reasons. But the ones we list are only the ones that have agreed to be listed, and because we never print information about a group that says we don't want that to be made public. If that's what they say, we honor that.
Great. Yeah. So that's well, I'm looking forward to that. That'll be a nice trip. And
I can give you another. Your readers may be interested in knowing that there are regular events where, like communities conferences, where people could go and then they could meet like 20 to 30 people from different communities in the area all in one place, or learn a lot of information and ask a lot of questions about communities. It'll attract both representatives of area communities and then also people who want to find out information, and this could be anywhere from 40, 50 people on up to hundreds of people. And there's 3 of them coming up this year. There's one going to be Memorial Day weekend, May 25th to the 27th at the Farm in Summertown, Tennessee. And then the next one will be a Twin Oaks Communities Conference in Louisa, Virginia. That's Labor Day weekend, August 31st to September 3rd. And then the last one is done by the FIC itself. We're going to do an Art of Community conference that's People, Places, and Purpose is the subtitle, and that will be September 21st to the 23rd in Occidental, California.
Repeat that dates again.
Okay, the first one is at the Farm, and that's in Summertown, Tennessee. That's May 25th to 27th. The second one is the Twin Oaks Communities Conference in Louisa, Virginia, and that would be August 31st to September 3rd. And the third one will be the Art of Community in Occidental, California. That's just north of San Francisco, about an hour and a half, and that will be September 21st to 23rd. These are all public events. There'll be many representatives of communities. In fact, I will be at all 3 of these events.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'll get more information. I'll be glad to put that up. I would.
If you go to our website, you can learn there'll be a calendar section, and all this information will be in there, and how to get more information and how to register. You can. The main website for FIC is www.ic.org.
Okay. What do you now? Obama passed an executive order talking about how viable the rural communities were. Did you are you familiar with that? Did you see that?
I've not seen it, but I do have a sense that, you know, I'm 62 years old, Clay, and during my entire lifetime, rural America has been diminished. It has been shrinking. It has become less viable. It's less attention is paid to it. And now, intentional communities are both an urban and a rural phenomenon, but 2/3 of them are in rural areas, mainly because land's cheaper there, and if you're interested in growing your own food, you're going to have a lot more opportunity to do that and more control of your local environment if you're in a rural area. And that's why we're where we are. We're in a very small county in Missouri. We're in a county that doesn't have a stoplight. That's how rural we are.
Now, one of my guests in the chat room is asking how much money roughly is needed to join this village. Now, I am the one that has a village, and it doesn't take any money to join my village. But what about your community here? What does it take?
In my community, there's no fee to join, but in many communities there are, because you see, now mine's an income sharing group, so the group controls all the land and all the buildings, and so there's no fee to join. Now that means you have to be debt free, because we're not looking to take on your debt, but if you get to keep whatever assets you have when you join, but once you're a member, all the money you earn would belong to the group, in exchange for which the group provides for all your needs. But you don't have to turn over your assets.
Now earning the money, how do you earn your money in your villages? If somebody is moving there, how are they earning money? How does that work?
All right, so it's going to be a different answer for my community and the ones that are income sharing than the ones that are not, which are the vast majority. So let me answer both ways. In my community, we have some businesses here, so and actually individuals are not required to make money, but everyone's expected to work. So your work choices are both domestic, things like growing food, cleaning, taking care of things that are internal affairs. There's no money changing hands, but that's part of our workload. And then there's also things, we have businesses, we're an organic farm and we sell food products, so that's a business that the community runs, and people could spend time working in those businesses. We have 2 people in my community who do part-time work. One is an organic inspector in the Midwest, and I do national work as a process consultant. I'm on the road half the time, and I work with groups. Remember what I said earlier in the program about learning how to solve problems together?
Yes.
Well, I teach groups how to do that thing, and I travel around the U.S. to do that. Now,
they should bring you here. They should bring you here.
Pardon me?
They should bring you here.
Work down there for me, huh? Well, the joke in my that there's tremendous need but low demand. The key is I don't go anywhere unless people ask me in, which means they have to admit that they have a problem and that they need help. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I hear you.
Okay, good. So the other answer is that most of the communities do not do income sharing, and so those individuals in those kinds of communities are going to own their own homes, and they're going to need to have their own solution to how they make a flow of money. Usually there's some percentage of income or else some flat rate they have to pay for the group needs, things like internal improvements to the roads, or maybe you've got internal facilities like a common house or a workshop that everyone jointly uses. And so the fees to keep that vibrant and in good shape are shared by everybody.
And these are these small towns, you know, small towns kind of drained around Texas and places like that. They were going broke. Is this intentional community like yours? Is that contributing to the growth of the county? Now, I've talked to a lot of farmers and ranchers, and one of the problems that they had is how we can't get help. We can't get help out here. The teenagers, the high school people, they don't want to work on a farm anymore. They don't want to work on a ranch.
Yep, I know. That was true. When I first came here, I was in my 20s when the community started in 1974. The local farmers were definitely surprised that people in their 20s would move into our county, because they were mostly experiencing a youth drain where as soon as people graduated from high school, they went to the cities where they could make more money.
How you gonna get them back on? How are you gonna get them back on the ranch after they've seen L.A.?
Right. Well, what you got to do is convince them that control of your life and the high quality food and good relationships with your neighbors is actually worth more than the high life in L.A. And that's why the dream and the reality of community is more vibrant today than it was when I started 38 years ago.
38 years you've been doing this.
Yes, long time.
Long time. Again, what about the political, social situation now? I mean, a lot of people feel like that Obama's ordered troops into the streets, basically, or can do that without violating posse comitatus. Are we looking? Do you think that we're looking at social disintegration, that the cities that we're going to have this, or is this talk of doom and gloom? Is that just negative vibes? Or is there a reason for us to be worried? And is there something we can do that besides just preparing for ourselves? What do you think?
I think that we're entering a period of increased instability. Whether it'll get to armed revolt or a police state, I don't know that. But I do think that we're, certainly the price of oil is going to continue to climb. We're going to see distribution irregularities, whether food trucks don't come as regularly. We can't rely on the electric grid as regularly. All that kind of stuff, I think, is in our future. We're going to have to figure out how to be much more locally resilient. I think part of the urgency for intentional communities is these are all experiments that are being done on a voluntary basis. We may be facing stuff down the road where we're not going to have the option of whether we want to share or not, because there may not be enough to go around for everybody to own everything individually. So I think it behooves us to think about how to be less dependent on outside sources for your main needs, and also how to figure out how to share things well when times get hard.
What do you when you're talking about this sharing? A lot of times we've had a lot of people come out, and I know that Unearth on my chat room has experienced this. People come out and they don't want to work and they don't want to do anything. They want the benefits. They want to be able to have a place to lay down, but they don't want to work or pitch in. How do you deal with it? How do you talk to people about this? They don't get to stay.
Well, basically, if somebody comes to us,
they don't get to stay.
We make it very clear. Everybody here has to work. Now, we give you a lot of choice about what that work could look like, but there's no free ride. And if you're looking for just support and can't contribute, this is not going to be a place you'll be welcome.
I think that's a good policy to have. And,
I think everybody should contribute.
Somebody was asking about the hippie communes. Was this like the hippie communes of the '60s? Would you like to?
Usually,
you were there in the '60s.
They're talking about very liberal sexual relations. They're talking about recreational drug use, and they're often talking about low work ethic. And so I think those elements are present in the intentional communities movement, but something that might present as a classic hippie mode is a dinosaur. I mean, it pretty much doesn't exist because you have to be a hard worker and productive to create something that lasts. So the ones that didn't figure that out aren't around anymore.
This is not regionalized either. This whole community thing, this idea of living together and working together, that's going all over country, isn't it? Actually, all over the world, isn't it?
It is, but the United States probably got a stronger presence than other countries. There are pockets that it is more common in. I live in Missouri, and it's pretty common here. California's got lots. There's not much in Alabama and in North Dakota. So so there's places. I would say the strongest pockets would include all up and down the West Coast, all the way from LA up to Vancouver, British Columbia. It's popular. You've got pockets in, I would say, Missouri and Arkansas is a pocket. You've got a pocket in Virginia and North Carolina and in New England. Up in Wisconsin and Minnesota is a pocket. Michigan is a pocket. So there's concentrations, but it really is all over the U.S.
Anytime a communist regime takes over a country, I've told people they go after three classes of people first. The first one is the farmers. Now, how are these laws against raw milk, or how about rawsome foods in California? That was raided by the police. What about that? And what can we do? What can you do? What do you do to protect yourself from this kind of harassment?
Well, I suppose a lot of food exchange, and first of all, I don't think there's laws prohibiting you doing what you do for yourself. It's a question about commercial sales, and they've got an interest in making sure that what the market is safe in some sense. Now, that's not an easy thing to define, what's safe. There's disagreement about that, and I'm honoring that. Now, I think a lot of what happens is if you think you're a suspect to being clamped down on by federal or state health officials or USDA, then usually you're trying to operate below the radar, and that's not that hard to do if you keep your sales local. In other words, if you're selling to your neighbors and stuff like that, nobody's going to find out about it unless somebody gets sick and there's a problem. So a lot of those exchanges never even show up in terms of somebody's 1040. So usually it's a commercial sale where you've got a point of contact. So for instance, if you're selling a product in a store, now the store's got a vulnerability and they'll be inspected. They can't hide. And if that inspector finds you've got a product that isn't meeting standards, then you're probably at risk. And I think there's probably there's more inspecting and there's more attention to that. And the other side of it that's in favor of the public is you see E. coli contamination and stuff like that. And those outbreaks are nasty and lethal. And so that's the good side of these inspections. But they're probably also got standards that some people think are ridiculous.
What about a restaurant? If every one of these has a restaurant, and you're feeding them the food that you grow, there was some kind of problem with that. Somebody was feeding the homeless, and they shut that down. And I've just got an email, and I haven't been able to check it out again, that they're banning feeding the homeless.
Well, if it's a question of quality of food, that would be one thing. In other words, what is it they're putting in those meals, and how careful are they being about the way they're preparing the food or where the food comes from? And there's a dance here between being, like I said, ridiculous and then actually being prudent. And not everybody who serves food, whether they're giving it away or selling it, is necessarily careful. And so that's the dance here about where it's appropriate to be paying attention and where it's just meddling. And I don't know which it is. And I don't know, of course, if they shut down, I don't know this story about feeding the homeless. I don't know whether that was a problem with the fact that it was homeless or whether it was a problem with unsafe food. I don't know the story.
I don't either. I haven't checked that out yet. But Laird, I appreciate you being on my show. Your site will be linked on my site, and I'd appreciate a link to yours, from yours.
Great.
And this show will be up at the top of the list here, or at the top of my page, just about in about 1 hour.
Okay.
And
thanks, Clay. It was fun doing it with you, and let me know if I can help you in the future.
All right, sir. I certainly will. Thank you very much. I will invite you back on my show. Thank you, sir.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Folks, I'm gonna sign off on this video here. Let me do a few things here. Oops. Okay, that's done. Alright. We are working, matter of fact, I've got to make calls back, return calls, about Liberty Villages. And we are, all you got to do is call me, 520-413-2397. If you've got some land you want to do this on, you know, for you assholes up there, this is a con, I'm not trying to con nothing, I'm not looking for no money. Yeah, I am looking for money from you. I want a $20 donation for listening to my radio show. That's what I want. That's all I want. Yeah, and I'll spend some of it on pot. You spend it on beer, I'll spend it on pot. How about that? If this was pot. I just like to smoke oregano. You can all, the rest of you can kiss my ass. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, and I hope the Easter Bunny takes a shit on your lawn.